Hi, everybody. Final thoughts time for Beyond the Horizon. And, folks, I think a lot of people are going to be very excited about this because this is not a sequel, but it's more of like an heir apparent or a spiritual sequel to an insanely popular worker placement game that came out a few years ago, which I already covered on the channel, called Beyond the Sun. Now, that game was from first-time designer Dennis Chan, and now he's gotten together with some very well-respected designers, Ben Pinchback, Matt Riddle, and Adam Hill. The three of them have been knocking out of the park for the last few years on really big, epic, crunchy, heavy roll-and writes like Three Sisters. But I mean, they're known for other stuff too. I mean, going all the way back to the original Fleet. So this group has gotten together, and then not for nothing, they're also teaming up with Simone Luciani, one of my favorite designers of all time. Simone did the development on the game, and they're revisiting the core tech tree idea, but throwing in some very cool new directions that I really, really appreciate. So I think it's kind of unavoidable. See, especially because Beyond the Sun, I just looked it up before I started filming this. I had no idea. It's in the top 100 games of all time on Board Game Geeks, like number 82 or something like that. So an incredibly successful, incredibly popular game that did get an expansion as well. And so I think a lot of people are going to be asking, well, should it be Beyond the Sun or Beyond the Horizon? Which one should it be? Now, I will say that if you like one, you are definitely going to like the other. And the two games do have a really unique feel. It's kind of like, well, hey, should I get Ticket to Ride Europe if I've already got Ticket to Ride? If you love Ticket to Ride, yes, you should, because it gives you a new flavor that's very, very different, and it can work for different audiences or just if you feel like different stuff. Now, if it's as simple as, well, I prefer exploring the vast reaches of space, I prefer talking about the next 2,000 years of human advancement as opposed to the last 2,000 years, well, then you know your answer. One is very clearly about humanity going from, the dawn of our species, as we know it today, up to basically the modern day. And then Beyond the Sun is set into the far, far future with intergalactic. I mean, heck, it'd be a great twofer. Hey, play Beyond Horizon first, then, have snacks, and then play Beyond the Sun. And it's like one contiguous story of 10,000 years of human evolution. That'd be fun. But regardless, if you really feel strongly about the theme, it's going to be pretty obvious which way you want to go. But if you're fine, or you, like me, love both pretty much equally, and you're equally excited, well, then we got to start talking about the gameplay. And the what do you call it? The tech tree that everybody loves to pieces in Beyond the Sun is here, and it's just as good and as compelling as it's ever been. Our tech tree is a functional worker placement board, and the more technologies we unlock, the bigger our worker placement opportunities grow as well. Like before, I really appreciate the fact that the techs are color-coded, so it doesn't quite feel so hodgepodge and all over the place. It feels like, yeah, it makes sense that could have actually evolved from this other technology. I also love that, the first player to do it gets a bonus, and usually, not always, but usually spreads bonuses around to everybody else. So there's a reward for being first to everything, but it's generally a relatively small reward. So just because somebody has done a thing doesn't mean you still don't want to do it yourself, because you'll end up getting 85-90% of the same stuff as them anyway. And the important thing is they were gambling, and you know what you're getting, and you'll be able to plan. Now, but literally, everything I just said is equally true for both games, because the worker placement tech tree stuff is exactly the same. So let's talk about what's different. First of all, right out of the gate, the most important change for Horizon is unique player powers, and these are awesome. The game comes with 8 different civilizations, although interestingly they're never named, unlike a lot of Civ games, but that's okay. You just have to pick yourself whether you think you're 8th in Carthage or whatever it might be. But anyway, you start out with a particular, one of the elements of the game, you get some kind of huge benefit for doing it, or you're better at doing than everybody else. And so that's cool that, looking at the one that I was playing with Jens, okay, it starts out with your despots, and you just get this basic thing. But if you invest in your logistics, which is another interesting thing, in the original game, you had 2 tracks you were advancing on, 2 economic elements of your society. Now you've got 3, because this logistic track does 2 things as you you work your way up it. It unlocks compounding, progressively more powerful versions, or makes you better and better. Jen starts out just getting bonus turns whenever she fortifies a city. But then she can pay less to be, it costs her less to fortify. And then if she keeps upgrading, it becomes even less, and then it scores points for her at the end of the game. So, it depends on how you're going to split your attention, because you already had to split your attention in both of these games between, am I going to grow my population or am I going to grow my wealth? Because both of these help me in different ways, but I need to balance them. Now you've got a third thing to balance as well. And that makes, I would say overall, your society development in Horizon a richer, more interesting element, because you're juggling three things. Two of them income, one of them full of one-time, very powerful bonuses that then dovetail into how fantastic. I just love this idea of, okay, yeah, we start out as despots, we've got a cool power, but the more we invest in that as we go from theocracy to monarchy to democracy, that becomes, it helps tell a story. One of the things I often talk about, Tom Lehman's series of Race for the Galaxy games, is I love the story that those games tell. And these despots, or these progression, unique powers, it makes you really focus on something right from the get-go that's going to push you in a different direction, but of course, then you're going to have to find a way to make that work as technologies develop across the world, whether you discover them or somebody else does. But it tells a story, how we get better and better at something. I haven't seen that before, and I really like it. Most games, you just get a special power, and that's what you got for the rest of the game. On the Sun, you get 2 special powers. That's cool. But here, you start with 1, and then it compounds and gets better and better and better. And there's 8 different ones, if I recall correctly. So a lot of variety. So I gotta say, if you're comparing the two on a gameplay term, Beyond the Horizon wins both on the depth of your civilization building and unique player powers. And you get it all in the box without having to buy a separate expansion. Now, on the other hand, there's one other really big change to this game. And this is bigger than everything I just talked about combined. In Beyond the Sun, there was a fixed set board with a bunch of star systems that players fought over throughout the entire game. And honestly, that was our least favorite thing about Beyond the Sun. We hated it so much we ended up getting rid of the game, because a lot of the special powers you unlock are about trying to move more and more colonists and troops into these different sectors around the galaxy, and not only moving yourself in, but kicking other players out and messing with each other. And it was a relatively soft war, but it was still war. Right? And the other thing is, it was a fixed galaxy. Every time you play, it's going to be the exact same thing. Here, it has radically changed, because now this is borrowed from a lot of other civilization-style games where over the course of the game, we are going to explore the world. The world is going to get bigger and full of more and more opportunities, all of them with cool, unique powers. And the interesting thing is, I might be the one to explore and I get a little bonus for being the first to get there. And then there are 2 more stages to it. First, there's the explorer. You just get a quickie bonus just as a reward for, getting out there. But then the next bonus is for the person who establishes a settlement, a village there. And then the next really big bonus, or in terms of points, comes from the person who turns that settlement into a city. So it's a 1, 2, 3 proposition. And those steps can be interwoven between players. I might be the one to discover it. You might be the one to zip in then and build the village and get the village benefit. But then you're like, oh, now that you build the village, I'll just move some of my soldiers over and do step 3 and build the city and score the lion's share of points. And I wouldn't have been able to probably get those points otherwise, and that's great because that works with my special power or whatever it might be. So that's really cool. And the other important thing is, unlike Beyond the Sun, where players are constantly at it, punching each other and messing with each other. Aha, you thought you had majority at the last second. I scooped in and kicked you over to a place that you already had majority, and now you get nothing, and now I get everything. Ha 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 ha. This game, it's fixed. Once a thing has been built, it belongs to that player. And it just then creates a ladder for the next player to climb and do the next thing. But then once the player gets that. So this is a very live and let live. This is one of the most live and let live civilization building games I've ever seen. And I love it for that. And so if you're a Care Bear like me and Jen, it's a no-brainer. Beyond the Horizon is the one to go for. So I say all that, but I should say there are a few key considerations. The big three changes: unique player powers, a third progression track, and a totally radically different. It's no longer an area majority battle for dominance. Now it's more of an exploration race game, is what the other third of the game is. And for me personally, that's much more engaging. But for some folks out there, no, I want to screw my opponents over and, stick the dagger in the back at the last possible second. So that's something to consider. There's one more thing to consider, because as much as I love the new things that have been added, there's two significant things that have been taken out that you can't get in Horizon, but that you can't get in Sun. One of them, to be fair, you have to have the expansion. The Beyond the Sun expansion included a solo mode, and I have no idea why there's not a solo mode for Horizon. It makes no sense to me, and I guarantee people are going to be very disappointed, because this is a very solo-friendly game. It could have been incredibly easy to make a solo mode, and it's really kind of disappointing. I guarantee once this game comes out at Essen Spiel this year, you're going to go on Board Game Geek, and the variant section is going to be chock-a-block full of suggestions for how to turn this into a solo mode. And honestly, the folks at Cranio, they should have done the work. They're just throwing money away. A lot of publishers don't seem to realize just how big solo gaming is. It's kind of like how 10 years ago, a lot of publishers didn't realize how fast the two-player couples gaming space was growing. Now it's for solo, and it's amazing to me, especially because Beyond the Sun expansion did get a solo mode. But anyway, so that's one thing to consider. But here's the other thing, and this is the more subtle thing, but it is important. Overall, Beyond the Sun is more predictable. Like I said, the area majority battle is on a fixed board. That board will be the same every single time you play, no matter what. Whereas this one, there is the excitement of exploration and not knowing what you're going to find when you go out there. And maybe you'll explore and you're like, oh, well, this doesn't work for me. Maybe maybe I'm just going to walk away and not bother with a village for this one because I don't care about that particular power. But hey, it means I'm one step closer to the place I do want to build a village or whatever. So that's a big difference. And for some people who don't like to see, random swinginess, that can be a problem. Now, here's the other thing that's missing. One of the things I loved about Beyond the Sun was Beyond the Sun played like I did, where, hey, when you make a new invention, you draw through the deck until you find a couple of cards that could potentially have branched off the previous one, and then you pick between those. So you have a little bit of control, but it's still unpredictable, and maybe you don't like either of the ones you drew. In Beyond the Sun, there was an alternate variant mode where you could see all of the available, not all, you could see a set of available inventions before you decided to make the jump. So you had a bit more control. And it took up more table space for this, and made it a heavier, crunchier game. But that is the way Jen and I enjoyed playing it. Because, hey, before I decide to, go from a level 2 to a level 3, it would be nice to know what are 4 of the potential things I might discover. Now, and maybe I don't like those, and I could still draw blind, and that still element is there. But I really appreciated the more predictable tech tree approach. And Beyond Horizon dropped that. Now, honestly, my expectation is probably because nobody played Beyond the Sun that way. It's probably just me and Jen. I don't remember anybody else talking about how it's so much cooler to have that extra control, even if it makes it a slower, more crunchy game. And so it makes sense that they would have taken it out. But to me, that's one of the key things that separates Sun from Horizon. And hopefully, folks, there is a reason Beyond the Sun is in the top, I think number 82 is mind-boggling to me. Out of whatever it is now, 50,000 board games in the Board Game Geek database, it's in the top 100 of all of them. Let me look. I need to look that up. Alrighty, let's see. Beyond the Sun. Oh, Leaders of the New Dawn was the name of the expansion. It's number 86. The 86th greatest game of all time. And while ultimately that game didn't work for me and Jen because it was a little bit too cutthroat, the area majority stuff, I thought it was well done, just not our taste. I could certainly see why so many people love it so much. So I think a lot of people a lot of people are going to be very, very excited about this because it does. I mean, it takes the core idea. If you love the gameplay of one, I guarantee you will love the gameplay of the other. If you're a super fan, you will probably appreciate both. There'd be room on your shelf for both because they both do very different things. But if you got to pick one, hopefully I've given you a pretty good idea of how you'd want to A/B comparison test these two games. But anyway, folks, I've just got to say, Dennis Chan, I doffed my cap to you a few years ago when I covered the original. It was a very audacious beginning, and now, in a lot of ways, I think the game is better than ever. So congratulations to you and all your compadres. And that was the run-through, folks, for Beyond the Horizon. Thanks very much for watching. Have a very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.